Hey guys, well, I want to address these Merrick files tonight, and I've delayed, posting anything about it for a couple of reasons. One is these are just absolute trash, the reports that are on the Merrick files, and I think it's pretty clear if you have any kind of experience with AI that whoever created this just jumped on Grok or ChatGPT or Claude and had it do a search, compiled a website, and without even fact checking it, went online. And so now it's causing me a little bit extra work to come back and debunk some of this stuff. And I think that you, the voter, deserve to know the truth. So here I am. I believe, maybe the most transparent candidate. Not a knock on any of the other candidates, but that's been my goal, is to be absolutely available and transparent to you, the voters. And, serving in a public office, especially that of governor, you deserve to know the truth. So let's dig into it. Okay, so the Merrick files, you can find it at merrickfiles.com. And it says, everything Jake Merrick hopes you don't bother to look up. Well, obviously we're going live here. I'm not afraid of the truth. And it's interesting that they claim to have receipts. They even have a little tab at the top that says receipts. They even have a tab that says public records, but that goes nowhere. Okay, so it says somebody had to do it. Jake Merrick is running for governor on faith, family, and fiscal responsibility while losing a house to foreclosure, expensing Halloween candy to his campaign, and calling Elon Musk a stud. The receipts are all public record. We just put them in one place. All right, the background: before he was running for governor, he was running for a lot of other things. It says a 44-year-old serial campaigner with a long list of side businesses and a longer list of past job titles. Now, I can only guess that whoever created this likes to have one career their entire life. That's not me. I am an entrepreneur. I am a creator, a big thinker. So yes, I've started multiple businesses. These have always worked in cooperation with our ministry. So my wife and I, we've been in full-time ministry our whole life. And just like Paul in the Bible made tents on the side to pay the bills, these are what these jobs have always been to me. I've owned a couple of fitness centers, and these were ministries in and of themselves that we poured into people, training them physically, but also helping them spiritually, emotionally, relationally, all the different aspects of a person. So they were great areas of ministry for us. I had a few construction companies, built fence, steel buildings, and the purpose of these were always to pay the bills so we can do ministry, do what's in our heart to do. But I love this, how it says I'm a serial campaigner. I don't know. The fact is, I felt compelled, I felt led by God to dive into politics in 2020 when I ran for Congress. Stephanie Bice was also in that race, and she ended up victorious, went on to D.C. to represent the 5th District of Oklahoma. I ran for her state Senate seat and won that in a special election. I ran for re-election and lost that re-election. I hosted the Jake Merrick Show for 2.5 years before I ran for this seat, and am in the middle of this campaign for governor. So I don't know if you want to call that a serial campaigner, more power to you, but that's the history of it. It says full name Jake Anthony Merrick, correct, born September 1st, 1981, great year. Listed occupations: former bodybuilder, not really an occupation, kind of a side hobby I did when I was personal training, so I never made any money from bodybuilding. Pastor, correct. State senator, contractor, yes, and also a professor. Was an adjunct professor at Southwestern Christian University for about 4.5 years. And what else? I've been a project manager for a roofing company. I've gone door to door selling AT&T contracts. I worked in the bookstore in college. I was a certified pharmacy technician when I was in seminary. So I think that about covers it. I've done a few different things, and I've enjoyed them all. It says my spouse is Nicole Lynn Merrick. True. 2 homeschooled daughters, ages 16 and 11. True, adoptive parent. Yep. Went to Dallas Baptist University and Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary. True. I did forget that I was the host of the Jake Merrick Show. I think I may have mentioned that, but in this list of occupations, that was one of mine, is a radio host. And so it does list entities tied to me. Paraclete, founded Paraclete, a nonprofit. True Cross Training, which was my personal training business. Curios Nutrition, it was a would-be nutritional company that never really got off the ground. Merrick Personal Training, self-explanatory. Next Door Contacts, it was a vision I had that actually turned into Next Door that many people use in their neighborhoods. Very similar to that, never went anywhere for me personally. Merrick Brothers Roofing, Merrick Brothers Tool Cells. My brother and I started these together. Merrick Wrench, still primarily owned and operated by Merrick Tool and Merrick Customized Construction. That was a would-be steel building company that has been a struggle since we started it. And Jam Media, a media company that I started to help facilitate podcasting and some other things I have in the works. I mentioned that I was a certified pharmacy technician. That's when I went to seminary in Fort Worth. It has an expired Texas Pharmacy Tech license, yes. And it says a current Oklahoma counselor license. Wrong Merrick. I'm not sure what Merrick that is, but I've never had an Oklahoma counselor license, so false. It says that I lived at 24 different addresses across Oklahoma, Texas, and Colorado. Never lived in Colorado, so that one's false. I did move a lot growing up in Texas, primarily in West Texas, anywhere from Big Spring to Lubbock to Levelland, Guthrie, Paducah, Vernon. We moved a lot growing up. And then coming to Oklahoma, my wife and I, we have moved several times in our 15 years of marriage. But that's just what it is. Has 2 criminal traffic convictions on record. Speeding in Tulsa County. Criminal records for speeding. I have to admit, I have gotten some speeding tickets. I love how it's framed as criminal traffic convictions. So these are paid speeding tickets. And it says driving 11 to 14 miles per hour over the limit in Illinois. Don't remember that. It's a possibility. I have traveled across the United States. It's possible I did get stopped in Illinois in 2014 though. I don't know. I don't remember that. Possibility. Okay, section 2, it deals with my serial campaigning. So it wanted to extrapolate this a little bit more evidently, and it says that I lost Congress. I'm sure they meant the run for Congress. I didn't lose Congress. I know where it's at. I won a state Senate seat because 2 opponents got kicked off the ballot. That did contribute to it. 2 of the would-be candidates challenged each other's residency and they were disqualified. So that did help me win. Praise God for that. Then I lost my re-election. Yes, now wants to be governor. Well, want is a strong word. I'm willing to be governor. So it goes through some of the details. These are mostly true. And it says lost his 2020. Well, first it says won the Senate seat by 3,500 votes, attributing the win to a Kevin Stitt endorsement. I don't know who's attributing the win to Governor Stitt's endorsement. I certainly did not. I probably thanked him for his endorsement, but the win was attributed to the army of volunteers that surrounded me, knocked thousands of doors along with me. That's what won that race. Not a Governor Stitt endorsement, although I was thankful for it. It says lost his 2022 re-election bid in the Republican primary to political newcomer Kristen Thompson after the Club for Growth spent $200,000 to defeat him. I think that's pretty true there. Dark money, they went to town and were willing to spend, it seemed, whatever it took to unseat me because I proved in my time in the Senate, my relatively short time in the Senate, that I was not bought and I was not going to be told what to do. I was going to vote on principle, even if it was unpopular, even if it would be used against me in my re-election campaign. And that's what I say. I have a proven record in the Senate that shows that I will stand up for principle over politics. And unfortunately, the establishment in the Senate, well, they had to get me out. So yes, the Club for Growth and I'm sure others spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to ensure I was out of there. Okay, this third one, hang with me, we have several more to go. This third one says the conservative whose position changed right before the election. And number one, it says he wants to deport all illegal immigrants now. In 2020, he supported amnesty for illegal immigrants already in the country. Now, as we all know, today's situation is vastly different from what we were looking at in 2020 concerning immigration. Now, in 2020, this was my first true dive into the political realm of really fleshing out and examining issues. And yeah, I leaned more towards, I would not call it pure amnesty. I would say a path to citizenship for those who are here in the country legally. And this is not far from my current position in that those who are, I'm not talking about illegals that are in the country. I'm talking about those who are here working on getting their citizenship. Maybe they have a work visa, maybe they have temporary status as a student, whatever it may be. If they are here legally working on their citizenship, I want to help expedite that process. And here's the reason why. Because government is notoriously inefficient and slow. And I just know files are lost, files are delayed, files sit on top of desks for weeks or months while people flounder in governmental systems. And so I would like to see that system streamlined to help those that are trying to do it honest and the right way, to help them move through the process quicker, to avoid a backlog of those that are waiting their turn in line. So that's essentially my position back in 2020, although it has become more refined now. I still am in favor of those who are here illegally being deported, so that those who are trying their best to do it the right way can move through the process quicker and save really taxpayers' money in the process. All right, so this one says that I say that I'm a Second Amendment hardliner now, but in 2020 I supported universal background checks before any firearm purchase, including at gun shows. And yeah, I believe that was my position then. Here's what I would say about anyone really. As you grow in your understanding, you should tweak your beliefs, or even just change them altogether. If suddenly you have conviction that abortion is murder, that should impact your policy. Now, if you notice here, my movement on the Second Amendment has only gotten stronger. I do see the argument that background checks really do little to stop criminals. They don't stop criminals at gun shows, online. If they want a gun, they're going to get a gun. And so all it does was slow down the process for those who do not break the law. So that is my position now. And I have migrated more conservative. So if you have an issue with me getting more conservative, I'm wondering who put the Merrick files together and why they have a problem with that. This one I do love. It says, posted on X in December 2023, that the purpose of the Second Amendment is not to allow for recreational shooting and hunting, a position out of step with most Oklahoma sportsmen. This has to be a liberal who created this website. The purpose of the Second Amendment is not for recreational shooting and hunting. And I believe most sportsmen in Oklahoma agree with that. The purpose of the Second Amendment is to defend against tyranny. Okay, so then down to the fourth section. Bear with me, guys. I'm moving through this as quickly as possible. I just want to make sure all of this is addressed for you. It says, picked Stitt over Trump, all right? And it's got 5 different points here. Number 1, endorsed Governor Stitt's Path to Zero income tax plan, including elimination of the grocery tax. Yeah, I did. Stitt's Path to Zero income tax plan, any path to zero income tax plan, I will support. The more aggressive, the better, including the elimination of the grocery tax. Yes, I felt like we should have gone much further than just the elimination of the state portion of the grocery tax. Nonetheless, I celebrate any reduction or elimination of taxes. Number 2, in 2020, I endorsed the national fair tax, a 23% national sales tax. President Trump publicly attacked Ron DeSantis for supporting the same proposal. I'm sorry, I might disagree with President Trump here. I still love the fair tax. They call it fair because it is the most fair. Look it up to get the details, but haven't really changed my position on that. I like that, although I do believe it is a shot in the dark as to whether we could achieve that. But again, any reduction or elimination of taxation is great. The fair tax moves taxes to voluntary status. Rich pay more because they buy more things. Poor pay less because they buy fewer things. I think that sounds like a fair approach to taxation to me. This next one, they're just reaching for something. It says, after Trump publicly slammed Stitt in February of 2026 and apologized to Oklahoma voters for once backing his campaign, Merrick's campaign refused to distance itself, saying Jake maintains a good, respectful relationship with Governor Stitt. I would like to see where that quote came from, because I don't know where that quote is found. However, I have been focused on my campaign. I have not entangled myself in other affairs, especially Governor Stitt's relationship with President Trump. So, yeah, this was something that they pulled out of the air. Let me go on to number 4 here. Repeatedly praised Stitt's handling of immigration on X, including posts in September and November of 2024, while Trump was attacking Stitt for being soft on illegal immigration. What I've always held to is I supported Governor Stitt's Operation Guardian, which was the starting point to deal with illegal immigration in this state and remove those that are housed in our prison system first. And I agree with that. I mean, why should we, the taxpayer, pay for to feed and house criminals who are illegal in the nation? No, let's deport them. And that's what Operation Guardian was all about. I also supported the effort to stop and deport non-domicile CDLs, those who are driving semi-trucks on Oklahoma highways when they can't read or speak English. I think it makes sense. So again, probably a leftist who created this. Let's move on. Publicly questioned Trump's 2025 strike on Iran's nuclear sites, posting, will this be the end of it? Will Iran attempt retaliation? Will Russia or China get involved? All legitimate questions. I still stand behind. Yeah, I do question anytime we strike any foreign country. So lots of questions around Iran and its nuclear process. I still support President Trump, although I do question our current involvement in Iran and wish that it didn't have to come to that. I hope it is resolved quickly. This number 5 says, anti-woke now, pro-diversity of ideas then. Anyone who has listened to my radio show or heard me speak at all knows this is just bull. All right, what do they say here? Wrote in 2020 that the diversity of ideas and beliefs are what make America great. Yeah, it's true. This is not talking about DEI diversity, however. And so let's make that clear. They intentionally stay vague in this. It says a framing that taken at face value includes, now see, they're trying to force critical race theory into this quote of mine, although I'm on record voting against critical race theory in my time in the Senate. And it says includes critical race theory and transgender ideology. Both I have very vocally opposed. So yeah. Number 2 here, let me wrap up this 5th section. Continued, we don't all have to agree, but we all have to agree that we all have a right to our voice. As long as our freedoms do not limit the freedoms of others or cause harm, they must be allowed. Yeah, I always say freedom is messy and we need to protect our freedom of speech. I don't know if the author of this is opposed to the First Amendment. I value it and want to protect that. You don't have to agree with me. You don't have to agree with the Constitution. You can say whatever you want to say, but whenever your actions begin to limit or violate other people's constitutional God-given rights, that's where it becomes criminal and must be, other people's rights must be protected. So yeah, I don't know what point they're trying to make right here. Again, more evidence. This is probably a leftist writing this, created Merrick files, but it says COVID conspiracy theories on campaign letterhead. All right, it says that I wrote on my campaign website in December 2020 that the COVID-19 virus was created in a lab to cripple Donald Trump's presidency. It probably was. Number 2, falsely claimed COVID's mortality rate was 0.02% at the height of the pandemic, when the actual US rate was closer to 1.6%. Nobody knew at the time exactly what it was because all of the records were messed up. And when they were pleading for us to trust the science, those who were in control of the science were twisting the results to their own narrative. I don't trust any of these mortality rates that were proposed, although we know it was somewhere around 1% mortality rate, not enough to justify shutting down entire cities, closing down churches, while also, by the way, leaving strip joints open. Number 3 here, it says that I described COVID as a beautifully orchestrated, albeit evil, plan to subdue an entire country by developing a virus in a lab and letting China take the fall. That's a pretty good quote from myself, if I do say so. Number 7, family values. It says that I run on a family-first agenda. It says, builds his campaign brand around Christian family values while publicly praising a man with 14 children by 4 different women. All right. Campaign bio describes Merrick as a devoted Christian, married for 15 years to his wife, and a proud father of 2 homeschooled daughters who will lead a family-first agenda. Good job, author of the Merrick Files. Yes, I did. I posted in 2022 that Elon Musk is moved to stud status because of his dedication and passion for innovation. In the realm of innovation, he's the king stud. I mean, he leads the way, sending rockets into space, boring under cities, creating the first electric cars. Yeah, the list is long, and I can still support that, even though his personal life is very questionable. Number 3, public reporting documents that Elon Musk has fathered 14 children. Like I said, private life, family life, not one to model yourself after. I was not referencing his private life. Way to try to twist it. Author of the Merrick Files, most probably a leftist. And most probably, I don't know why you guys believe this stuff. So hopefully this clears it up. Let's move on. All right, number 8, wants to run a $12 billion budget, can't pay his own bills. And of course, this is where a lot of people have been looking right now. It says we're in foreclosure, being sued by Great Plains National Bank for defaulting on a construction loan taken out on October 8th. Unpaid principal was $255,000 and plus accrued interest. True, it is. And let me just explain this, okay? I left my radio show in July of last year, 2025, out of pure conviction that this was a race I must run, because the people and myself, we're tired of the way things have been, because there are things like child welfare here in the state of Oklahoma that is massively corrupt. It must be addressed. And I believe God has burdened my heart to do this, to reform this system. And this is really driving me to see massive reform in the state. So when it came time to play it safe and stay on air, or jump in with both feet and let the people know I was serious about running for governor, I knew I could not wait. July 1st, I went public, formed my committee with ethics, and became an official candidate for governor. I had an agreement with the radio station, KQOB, that whenever I became an official candidate, that I would leave the radio show, my radio show, on the 96.9 FM, because I would not subject them to a possible lawsuit where another candidate might sue them for equal time. Possibility. And I wanted to honor my word to the station. So I left, and what I left was a bit of security. So I lost that radio show that I had built up over 2.5 years, my sponsorships, and one of the primary ways we were paying our bills. However, I knew I was in obedience. We had a couple of other income streams, and I said, okay, we're going to be okay. We can still pay our bills. I have my podcast, some sponsors with the podcast, and income streams through Merrick Tool. I help with some marketing and sales with Merrick Tool. If you haven't checked that out, check that out. So as the campaign progressed, our construction loan termed out, and now we had to refinance for a traditional mortgage. Well, I lost my W-2 with the radio station, which made refinancing very difficult. If you haven't ever tried to get a loan without a W-2, it's very difficult. And so I was working to ramp up a couple of other things. I still had Merrick Brothers tool cells. I still had my podcast through Jam Media. Jam Media, though, had not been in business long enough to satisfy the bank. And so I'm working and scrambling to prove my income to the bank so we can refinance and get this other mortgage settled. So as I'm working on this, the interest is accruing, and in the process, Merrick Tool shifts directions a bit, cuts my pay in half. I do not have enough time to produce a quality podcast, so I let my sponsors fall off on the Jake for the State podcast. So more of my income was cut off, and now we have a question in front of us. Are we going to continue in this campaign that we feel very strongly about, or abandon ship and focus on getting a job and securing this mortgage? Well, after praying about it, my wife and I decided we have to continue in this campaign, trusting God would provide and open the right doors. We progressed in this. At the same time, I started my run across the state, 386 miles down Route 66. And in the middle of all this, we were not able to refinance the mortgage. Our income was still struggling. The campaign was doing amazing. Momentum was building every single day. And the bank foreclosed. I've been in constant communication with Great Plains. They've been an amazing bank to work with. And we are working on refinancing this still. I haven't abandoned my obligation to them, and I will pay it. We will get this refinanced. And that's the story. So this is not some fraudulent scheme. This isn't some abandoning of my fatherly duties, my family responsibilities, or anything like this. That is just like I explained it. We were in the middle of this transition from a construction loan to a traditional mortgage. And the campaign was so consuming. A statewide race is so demanding that if you're not already independently wealthy or have the outside funding coming in to take care of your campaign, because here's the thing, if you don't have that, then it is a real fight. Here's something you have to consider. Without the lobbyist and PAC and special interest money, which could potentially be in the millions, right? When you do have that, you can hire people to go knock doors. You can buy mailers. You can buy TV ads. You can do all these traditional political things to get your name out. And it takes the burden off of you to actually go do it yourself. Listen, we don't have drivers. We don't have an entourage that goes with us to every meeting. If you've been at one of my meetings, you've seen me or my wife carrying in the box of signs. We've set up our own tables. We drive ourselves to and from the event. We make all the calls. I write out all the newsletters. We help input on ethics reports. I mean, we're doing all the work ourselves because that's what it requires when you're not taking all the money. So yes, it has been a personal struggle, 100%, but it has absolutely been worth it. This is what is required in this day to challenge the political machine, and I'm willing to lay it all on the line. That's what we've done. It also says I have other debts. One of these it mentioned is property taxes to Grady County. Not true. Those property taxes have been paid. And it says there's a state tax warrant that's been paid. So yeah, I mean, there's other past debt that it brings up here that has been taken care of. So I don't believe an issue right now. Okay, number 9, for your sake, I hope we got still have quite a few things. Number 9, used his Senate office to help his own construction business. It says, joined a Senate request asking the state attorney general to investigate rising building material prices while operating 2 active construction companies. This is just so bizarre. It says, as a state senator in 2021, joined 10 other senators in asking the interim attorney general to investigate alleged price gouging in the construction supply industry. Yes, the purpose of this was not to benefit me. There were others in construction that also made this request because we're in the industry, so we understand how this is going to impact not just us, but the entire industry across the state. So I don't believe there's anything unethical about this. At the time of the request, Merrick was an active partner in Merrick Brothers Roofing, an LLC my brother and I started but did nothing with, and Merrick Customized Construction. False. Merrick Customized Construction was created later in 2024, I believe. 2024. And so this is saying it was active in 2021. False report. Let's go to number 10. Free meals from lobbyists. Accepted free meals, gifts, and top golf outings from a long list of registered lobbyists during his Senate term. There were lobbyists, and it lists a few here that treated Merrick to food, beverage, including Jeff Appelkamp, Keith Beal, David Bond, Connor Carroll. It lists a whole bunch of these. Accepted a $300 fixed price meal from, I don't know what from Chad Warmington. Here's the thing. When I went out with groups of legislators, I did not go out with individual lobbyists so they could wine and dine me. All of these were instances of going out with groups of legislators where we went to discuss policy, agendas that these lobbyists have. And it was in this process of doing this that Senator Hamilton, that I still value as a friend, very principled senator, he told me why he was no longer going on these outings. Senator Dom was another one. And it was through their leadership and example that I was able to see why these types of outings could be damaging, because it subjects yourself and opens yourself up to influence by those lobbyists. Through the influence and mentoring, I would say, of these senior senators, I saw the danger in this, the potential danger of corruption, and that's why I made the commitment that I'm making now of not taking any lobbyist money. Okay, so here's another fun one. Campaign funds for personal expenses, number 11. And they should have put personal expenses in quotation marks. So, and it says the Oklahoma Ethics Commission filings are public. So are the receipts. Yeah. And I have itemized all of these things publicly because I'm not ashamed of these things, and let me explain why. It says reimbursed himself $39.08 on July 5th, 2025 for frames and artwork purchased at Hobby Lobby. We're not remodeling or redecorating our house right now. We're in the middle of a statewide campaign. We are not purchasing frames and artwork for our home, okay? These are for our table that we set up when we go to an event. These are frames that we set up to put our QR codes and all the information so people can see them when they come to our table. And we purchased some with our personal money and then reimbursed ourselves $39. So reimbursed ourselves $264 for tables and light purchased at Sam's Club. Again, legitimate campaign expenses. These are for tables for the events where we go, and purchasing it with our personal money, reimbursing us from the campaign, all ethical and according to the ethical standards of ethics. And it's got another one, reimburse ourselves $65 for cleaning supplies and caution tape purchased at Walmart. Same story. We have $118 for clothes purchased at Marshall's. These are the shirts you see me wearing with the monogrammed Jake for governor. Same thing with the amount spent on suits, and it's $815 for suits. Again, cleared with ethics. These are legitimate campaign expenses. These are clothes devoted only to the campaign, and 2 $400 suits to go to campaign events and forums and debates and things like that. So, again, we clearly put all of this in our ethics report because we weren't trying to hide anything. It's there for public view, and we've cleared it all with the Ethics Commission. It also says reimbursed himself $42 for candy purchased at Sam's Club about 2 weeks before Halloween. This was for a parade, a campaign parade, where we bought candy to give to children. Not so we can feast on candy. We don't eat a lot of candy in the Merrick house. All right, we also have $710 in cash out at a Walmart in Durand. I bank with Old Glory Bank. Old Glory Bank does not have physical locations. They have one in Elmore City. The other are partner locations with Walmart, Walgreens, and places like that. So whenever we get cash donations, we have the paperwork filled out, then we go to Walmart and deposit that cash through a partnership they have with banks like Old Glory Bank. This individual who is helping me one day cashed out instead of cashing in. We corrected that transaction, and all of this has been documented and talked about with the Ethics Commission. So no nefarious withdrawal of $700 from our campaign funds. Okay, number 12, built his podcast business with campaign money. All right, let's see what they say here. It says, used donor money from his 2021 Senate campaign to build the podcast he now uses to run for governor. All right, so it says, spent $420 in Senate campaign funds on campaign podcast supply, equipment, phone, a mic and camera from Amazon. Yes, 100% true, because the Jake for the State podcast started as a campaign strategy in my run for Senate to talk about the issues in a podcast format. So I bought the podcast equipment for this campaign podcast that I used not nearly enough. That was when I was first getting going in podcasting, still experimenting with it. And I posted a few podcasts on the Jake for the State podcast, but that's why it started. The Jake for the State podcast started as a campaign podcast, and then I really abandoned ship on that and devoted my time to knocking doors instead of trying to figure out the podcast thing. So later it says I spent $1,500 in Senate campaign funds renting 3 months of office space from Corey Benton. Yes, I mean, so part of this whole pursuit of a podcast was renting a space and buying the equipment, but all part of this strategy to use the podcast for my run for Senate. I thought it was creative and thinking outside the box. Okay, so a long list they have here. It says, after losing his primary, I transferred $1,279 in surplus campaign funds to his own nonprofit, Paraclete, in October 2022. And then another $650. And so these are true. This is true. And I've made a video about this. I've gone to ethics multiple times and talked to them about it. At the end of October 2022, after it was clear I had lost my re-election, I had no plans to run for office again. And so I was going to close out my Senate campaign. Did not know what to do with the extra funds. So I went to ethics and said, I've got these extra funds. What should I do with it? And they advised me on 3 options. Number 1, you can return it back to the donors. You can donate to another campaign, or you can donate to a nonprofit. And I said, well, I have a nonprofit. It's a legitimate 501c3 I set up to help people pay for services that traditional insurance doesn't pay for, like personal training, nutritional counseling, things that benefit their health that traditional insurance wouldn't pay for. We used it to help a lot of people. And I thought, this is something I believe in. It's a legitimate 501c3. I asked ethics, the individual helping me at ethics at the time, I said, would this work? And they said, if it's a legitimate 501c3, yes, you can donate to that. So I did. I dumped those funds in Paraclete. You can check it out, Paraclete Inc. and closed the account and went on my way. Probably wouldn't do that again just because of this, because I can understand what that might look like. However, those funds went towards paying for the personal training of a 13-year-old that needed to lose 200 pounds. He was very overweight. We paid through Paraclete another personal trainer to train him for 3 months. And it also went to helping an individual that needed some meal plans, and then another individual that had Parkinson's that I was using Paraclete to help pay for his personal training, because his wife was really struggling due to his Parkinson's. And so, that's the story behind that. I did donate to Paraclete. Paraclete is a nonprofit I did fund. However, ethics did say that would be a legitimate option for me. And those funds did not go to me personally. They went to help other people benefit from Paraclete. All right, number 3. Spending campaign money he doesn't have. This is based on a report from last quarter's reporting. The reality is my treasurer has had a long list of things, including her brother-in-law passing, her father passing, her house flooding, and it delayed her ability to get everything input. So we input as much as we could in the last quarter before the filing deadline, and there were some contributions that had not yet been input. And so we did meet the deadline. However, we had to come back later and amend that, showing all of the contributions. Now that is showing in the black, as is our current report that was just reported yesterday, I believe. So I can understand how number 13 on here may look a certain way, but that's the explanation to it. You can go back now and look at all of our reporting, and it's in the black. All right, I love this one. Killed the biggest school choice bill in Oklahoma history. It says, cast the deciding vote that killed Oklahoma's largest ever school choice expansion, then lost his primary over it. Yes, that is true, and I would do it again. Let me explain why. I voted against Senate Bill 1647. This is called the Oklahoma Empowerment Act. And this was touted as the conservative solution to fix the failing public schools. It was the ultimate, in some people's opinion, school choice program. My problem with it was, it says 10% of those who take the money, the voucher, will be audited. And I started to ask the question, out of 10% who take the money statewide, $128.5 million, do you think there's going to be any fraud or misuse of funds? I said, most likely. And I know the pattern of government. It likes to grow. So 10% this year, but after they discover the mishandling of funds and fraud, I could only imagine that the following year they're going to say, well, this is the evidence of abuse. We need to audit more, to protect taxpayer money. So I could see that escalating to 25%, to 50%. You know what? Let's just audit everybody who takes the money. Now you have government smack dab in the middle of your business. All right? This is just going to grow government and allow government a door into your private life, into the lives, to the businesses of these private schools. So I said, I think this is opening an unnecessary door. I don't like, and when I explained this concern to the organizations pushing this, they said, well, yeah, maybe so, but eternal vigilance is the key. We just must be eternally vigilant. Well, this is like saying, I don't think it's a good idea to take the doors off the hinges, but, just sleep with your gun locked and loaded. All right. If somebody comes through, you can at least deal with them. Well, why don't you just get a door and lock it? At least have one more barrier from the government coming into your home. So that's why I voted against it. Proud that it did kill it, because I think it would have been bad for families across the state. And yes, because of my unpopular stand in this, the Club for Growth and many others came after me to get me out of the Senate because they don't like independent thinkers. They don't like those who operate on principle over politics. They need people to fall in line and do as they're told. I'm not that guy. All right, I love this one too. Number 15. Man, they have a lot of categories. Grok or Claude or ChatGPT, whichever one created this. Great job organizing all of this. So, voted against pro-life bills. Yes, again, let me explain why. It lists all of these pro-life bills, but let me just summarize this by saying, well, number 6 here, it says, defended the votes by calling himself an abolitionist who opposes the bills because they didn't go far enough. His own bill classifying all abortions as homicide never got a hearing. Good job. You got something right here. Yes, you're right. Here's the thing. I opposed the regulation of abortion because, like it said, I do believe that killing life in the womb is murder. And so to make allowances for murder up to so many weeks, or murder if somebody with the right degree or certification is allowed to, or under any of the other number of exceptions, I disagree with that principally. I would have preferred Oklahoma challenge Roe v. Wade, give up federal funding if that's what it took to protect life. So that's where I stood principally. And I voted against these pro-life bills because I didn't really believe they were pro-life. And this is something that must be clarified. It's not that I was pro-choice or that I was for abortion. I was actually radical in this area of believing abortion is murder. And if you want to call that radical, call me radical. But I just believe in protecting life. Some of you who know our story know when my wife got pregnant, the very first question, her cardiologist, her lung doctor, her OBGYN, the very first thing each of them asked her was, when do you want to schedule the abortion? Because you cannot carry this child. And we told each one of them one by one, we are not having an abortion. God gives life. We're going to trust him. So this is our core conviction. We personally have practiced this. And I do not regret any of these votes. I hope it set an example for the rest of the state. And right now, we're at a crossroads when it comes to abortion. And I hope that the legislature and the future governor, I know if it's me, I know that I'll have the backbone to take a hard stand for life. That's why I believe that I'm the one that needs to be in this position. All right, we have some more leftist twisting of things here on number 16, category 16, a pattern of skipping the important votes. Now, here's the thing. I missed a total of, I need to go back and confirm, but I think I missed 2 days of votes. And these were the 2 days that my wife, a light just came on, that my wife had her annual heart examination in Dallas. My wife has a very complicated heart condition, and I go with her every year to her annual examination. It's a very sensitive time for her and our family. I don't miss that appointment. And so, yeah, I did miss some critical votes. And the fact is, I have a 76 rating, conservative rating from the Oklahoma Constitution. I asked the editor of the Oklahoma Constitution, why is my rating so low? Because I know I'm more conservative than a 76. And he said, well, you missed 2 critical votes. And he told me what those votes were. When I told the editor of the Oklahoma Constitution how I would have voted on those 2 critical votes that they used as a basis for their conservative ranking, I told him how I would have voted. And he said, if you had voted that way, you would be ranked a 96% conservative ranking. So that's more like it. That's, I think, more accurately represents how conservative I am. All right, number 17. I think we're getting closer to the end. This may be it, actually. Yeah, this is the last one. Good job to all you guys hanging in here. So pledged no PAC money, but already took $19,000 of it. I've already told you guys about this. It's interesting how this does not mention the PACs I took it from. These are conservative PACs like OKHPR, like OK2A, like the Senate PAC. And then it mentions me giving federal campaign contributions to federal campaigns, like $500 to Sabrina Banks, a great conservative who is running for CD5, and then $500 to Performance Racing Inc., great PAC out of SEMA, and they were working on getting the government out of racing. So yes, $500 to them out of our campaign funds. But again, I'm not trying to hide that at all. I did take PAC money from good conservative PACs. I'm not taking any money from any PACs. So it's very clear I'm not bought by anybody, and I'm obligated only to the people of Oklahoma. Finally, let me just speak to something I think I overlooked earlier when I talked about the $12 billion budget and the personal debt I may have and the personal financial struggles that I have had in working out currently. No single man handles the state budget. No single governor creates and organizes the state budget. A wise leader will surround himself with competent individuals. This is what it's about for me. There are going to be areas I'm strong in, areas I'm weak in. All right, I'm not going to pretend I can do all of it, and the fact is no man can. I will surround myself with great financial wizards that also understand limited government and the Constitution. And they will help us organize the budget that we will propose. And then, of course, the Senate will do the same, and the House will do the same, and there'll be numerous meetings and bargaining and negotiations to come up with the final budget that hundreds of people will be involved in. So yes, I can handle my role in the $12 billion budget, because my primary role will be selecting those who are competent and ensuring that they prioritize the Constitution in the process.